Even though it's not quite 5.
Okay, you're gonna call the order. A roll call.
I'd like to call to order this October 15th, 2024 meeting of the Healthcare Advisory Committee. Rather than doing a roll call, I thought we could just go around the table with the HAC members since we have a couple new faces. So Tim, if you want to start. Yeah.
So my name's Tim Hort. I'm new to the committee. Thank you for having me. I am formerly Dr. Tim Horton, and I'm one of the pediatricians over at PSL.
Yeah, Kendall Sawa. This is my first meeting. I'm the new chief hospital executive for Kitchen.
Amanda Robinson, Assistant Public Works Director for the City of Kitchen.
I'm Judy Sweeney, City Council member, and I believe this is going to be my last meeting.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Scott's my report service.
Oh, you're.
And Lacey Simpson, I'm the Assistant City Manager for the City of Ketchikan and the co-chair of the HAC.
My sister Marilyn Murphy, I'm on the advisory board for the hospital and came up from Vancouver, Washington.
Thanks for being here. And thanks to all of you who are listening. We often don't have members of the public, so thank you very much for coming. We'll go on to communications. We have none, which brings us to persons to be heard. So if there is anybody who's seated in the room that would like to address the Healthcare Advisory Committee, raise your hand. Mr. Stevenson.
So I'm here speaking for myself. I had a couple of individuals come to me and I explained some things that happened to them in the hospital, and I told them probably the best thing for to do is to just let this board know, and rather than voice it go through media and that kind of stuff. One of the individuals was ill and went to the emergency room, fever, problems with their arms and movement, and they didn't really come up with a diagnosis, which was fine at the time. They treated him and sent him home. Well, the individual's health deteriorated, and they went back, and they were refused treatment or totally because they thought they were seeking drugs. So they went back home, and the individual got to a point where a doctor had to send an ambulance and bring him to the hospital. The person was then medevac to Seattle, where he continued to fight the problem that he had, and thankfully he got the man. Another individual came to me. He was in the ER for back pain, and they looked at him and stuff. And the ER time was very busy because I happened to be there at the same time with my wife. And again, the accusation of seeking drugs came up. And I know that's a real thing, but I just think that it might be a problem if that's the reason why you're refusing service without a diagnosis. So I just want to bring it to your guys' attention in regards to that.
Thank you, Bob. Is there anybody else in the room who would like to speak to the HAC? Wonderful. All right, thank you. So we'll move on to agenda 5, which is approval of the July 25th, 2024 meeting minutes, which have been provided to everybody. We don't have them on the screen, but we do have copies in the room for review. I'll say that we're pretty informal here. We can certainly do a vote if someone would like to make a motion, or if there is silence and no offered changes, we can take that as acceptance as well. So. Thanks, Scott. Is there a second? Judy. Okay. Any discussion, changes, corrections? None. Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? None. Those are passed. Okay, moving on to item 6, old business. Update on behavioral health services at the Ketchikan Medical Center. This is something that came up sort of informally at the last meeting, and so we decided that we would put this on the agenda because it was definitely on everybody's mind with the news about Aquila leaving the community and what both Peace Health and other providers would be doing to address behavioral health needs in the community. Kendall, I'm not sure if you're going to be the one to talk to this in terms of Peace Health, so please.
Yeah, I think I
go
can
for it.
in part. Before I do, is there anybody from True North on the line? I know they were traveling today, so there might not be a representative.
I am not seeing anybody from True North.
Okay, that's okay. I can
Yeah.
speak to
Yeah, okay.
So I would just say in follow-up to the old business that the designated evaluation stabilization designation for Ketchikan Medical Center remains intact. We did a contract with an agency called Iris Telehealth, help perform inpatient and ED consults. So if a patient arrives in the ED, our providers can call Iris Telehealth to do a behavioral health consult, determine what the best course of action is for them. And it's very well utilized, at least over the last 2.5, 3 months that we've engaged with them. So we're happy with that service right now. And then as far as the building that you see, the car house that Aquila was occupying, we are working with True North Recovery, who has another blueprint in Alaska and across some other locations in the country to provide residential substance abuse. And we're working with them on using that building to do the same. I believe they could have provided a better update, but they're already in the process of hiring up to begin to take patients into that center. So we're just working through the final logistics now.
Great.
And then I think you had outpatient behavioral health services or KTC.
Yes. So before we go to that, just to open the floor, if there are any questions on what work Peace Health is doing for behavioral health and substance abuse needs in the community. I had a question, and maybe you can't answer it yet, but what is the planned stand-up date for the car house to be operational?
You know, I think it's dependent upon hiring at this
Sure.
point in time. That's why I was hoping to get a better, more accurate update from True North today. You know, when I last talked to them, and that was about a month ago, they had already hired about, retained about a third of the staff to occupy that space already. So I think they're going to increase their census as their staffing allows them to be able to do so.
Wonderful.
There's been some renovations happening as well, right?
There is, yeah, and yeah, they're doing a lot of work inside that.
Great. Are there any questions, other questions about medical center and behavioral health? Okay. So I was also hoping that someone from KTBC and RISE was here I thought they would be joining online to speak to what they're doing. I can try to muddle my way through it because I believe today is the first day that they are open, which is possibly why they are not here. As we talked about last time, the former Gateway Aquila properties were conveyed by Aquila to KTBC, which is Ketchikan Tribal Business Corporation, which is the business corporate arm of KIC. And they have now created RISE, which is a nonprofit to provide inpatient services for substance abuse at that facility. They have partnered with Search to provide that medical component. They too have been working to renovate the facilities. They had an open house about a month, 6 weeks ago, and they are making a lot of progress with the building. They're starting with kind of, if you were to walk into the building, the right half as you come in is completely, or was 6 weeks ago, completely torn apart. And so that will take some time, but it's operational in other aspects of the facility. So they are hoping that as they get their footing under them, can complete renovations, that they'll be able to eventually expand into more behavioral health services. But right now they're just concentrating on those outpatient substance abuse needs for our community. So that's what I know. And certainly if I see someone pop online, I'll maybe pause and we can hear what KTBC has to say. Okay. Any further questions, comments about that?
I have one,
Yeah.
That facility opening, we've noticed a lot of congestion and parking on
Yes.
Fifth Avenue, partly due to our paving projects, so apologize for that. But the ramp 4 parking lot is now back open for Peace Health
Wonderful.
parking. It's not gonna be striped until we get the final pavement down in the spring, but you're able to park in there, everything's available and open. So you can have everyone, start to move down there to try to relieve some of the congestion for that new facility as well, if you want to. So,
Thanks,
and then it'll
Amanda.
be fully paved in the spring, but definitely catch can't fall is allowed for that.
No, it's not.
Construction of it.
Yeah.
I think there are some signs in that parking lot, so usually you walk across that say no parking still.
Okay,
So we may
I'll
want to clarify, because I noticed there weren't a lot of people parking there, so
tell our streets department to change those.
great. Yeah, that's gonna be a big help.
Yeah.
And it's nice that the walk signal's open again too as well, so that we can get across safely without getting hit.
Great. Thanks, Amanda.
That's great.
Okay. So 6B is how the public can issue comments to Peace Health. This is something that, sorry, I want to say Councilmember Zangi, which you are, but HAC member Judy kind of whispered in my ear at the end of the last meeting, because all of you, I'm sure, as members of the HAC, members of the community, are asked, how you can submit, how people can submit comments or how they can engage in a public process for expressing concerns or other comments. And so I really apologize because I wanted to get my act together and have a lovely conversation with Kate, who does such good work with graphic design, but instead you get this ugly, boring thing. So it's a start. And Kate, I will circle with you at some point and maybe we can put together a nice little brochure. But I just wanted to break down the online component that Peace Health has for submitting comments, which is the primary way when in terms of the care that somebody receives at Peace Health, that those comments should be issued. But also talking about this group as a forum for people to come and express concerns more relative to the lease agreement. So things that are spelled out in the lease, but certainly to voice other concerns about care. The HAC has very specific duties that are laid out in the charter for this group, again, as a product of the lease agreement that we have in place. But I think all of us would say that we're available to hear those concerns. And then lastly, and I didn't want to speak too much to this, that's again something I would like Kate to weigh in on, but the Peace Health Community Health Board being another venue for people to express concerns or talk about where they like the direction of the hospital to go. And the town hall that we're going to have here in just a bit is the perfect opportunity to do that. So I'll just pass these around, and if there's extra folks in the audience can have them as well. And I promise I'll make it pretty someday, but for now it's functional.
And if I would add to that, yeah, I would, say, of course, our community health board is a perfect place, venue to provide feedback, but it's a small enough community too that some people know some of the leaders in the organization.
Absolutely.
It's an informal process, but we would sort of take those concerns and we would bring it back for resolution if possible. And sometimes it's not always convenient to go to the website and enter, a comment, and we would, of course, be willing to facilitate that process if necessary.
Great. Thank you for that. I know that's a lot to digest, but if there were any thoughts that anybody had to make that better, or something I missed, Judy.
So I think for me, part of it is people can fill out those forms, but we don't know as a board how many are actually going in, how many positives, how many negatives, what are they, we certainly don't want to violate HIPAA, but I think we need to know, is that working? Is that the best way to communicate? And right now, we don't really get that in terms of the numbers. And I think that would be important for us to see. But I also think, and I haven't read this obviously, but it would be great for the community to understand, or at least know the difference between the HAC and the community health board. Because as someone who sits in a very accessible place on a daily basis, I get folks who think they can come in and tell me all this stuff. I direct them to the website, so it's very important for me personally to always know where they click. And a couple of times I wasn't clear, and it just, they ended up telling me, all of their personal stuff, which I didn't want to know. So I think it's important that we inform them about that as well. I mean, maybe in a broader sense, but just, like tonight, they can go, I believe that's what they happened before, right? So they would go there and they would talk about what they're comfortable talking about. And the online stuff, I thought was more for the lease, that, okay, these are the complaints, these are the areas we need to work on. This is how many we received.
Mhm.
So if we could get some feedback on how that's being used, maybe during the report.
Okay.
I think that would be good.
It's like grievance line, right? I mean, we're reporting numbers, and when numbers came back to us on the community health board about that. I kind of cringed when I heard, Bob, you made your comments. I think it's great to refer people like that to a little bit more of a more formal response of a grievance line or something like that, because you love to think that every provider is great and all that stuff, but certainly we have patterns. We're human like anybody else. And those kind of grievance lines allow us to find patterns and make corrective actions and things like that for people. So, we have a very robust peer review process at the hospital that happens within the docs, just allows us to kind of do it as a peer community. And, that's all great information that I fear we're missing if we pass it around in the small community word of mouth, that we have a chance to kind of offer a little bit better outcome.
And I think one thing that we may have talked about before as a group relative to those types of comments is categorizing them in some way. Again, not to violate anything, but to see if there were trends. Like, in this quarter, there were 55 comments that were negative about orthopedics. Like, that's something we need to keep our eyes on. And maybe you all do that already, but I think to Judy's point, as this, this group is charged with making sure that those lease items, that the actual services are being met in a positive way. I think that would be good. And I know that's extra work,
Yeah,
but
that's okay.
yeah.
I think I would, okay, maybe we can talk about a way that we can kind of categorize those a little bit and see if we can't parcel out those things related to the lease that this committee would want to be aware of. I know a lot of comments coming to those lines, everything from, it could be, patient care concerns to wait times to a parking problem to, you name it. But we can see if there's trends in there that we can bring back and at a later date, I guess.
Great. Any other discussion about public comment process at this time? Okay. Item 6C under old business is the update on the same day clinic.
Yeah, we just want to provide an update on this because there was a discussion at the last HAC meeting, and I would say, and I'd look to Scott and Dr. Horton, but everything I've heard about this clinic is it's just been very successful. We recently celebrated the 1-year anniversary of opening that clinic. It's open Tuesday through Saturday, Tuesday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then on Saturdays from 8 to 5. And we continue to track kind of the number of visits we get by hour, by day, just make sure we're covering the right hours for that clinic. But I would say that it's well utilized, and the provider that's in that clinic is key to the success of that clinic as well. Lots of positive feedback. I don't know if you guys have anything about that. So, no, I mean, we're going to continue that.
That's great.
I don't think I'm in that. We continue to see slow growth, but in the right direction. Continues to be utilizing more and more every month for the most part. And I still think it's to be determined whether or not it's going to have any meaningful impact on the ED. There's certainly months where we see a correlation there, but whether or not that's a real trend, I think is time will tell. Like we talked to the staff in the ED, the general consensus is that it hasn't had a great impact on their day-to-day, or they don't feel it yet, but the numbers are probably subtle, but there.
Sure.
I think it's always hard when you're in ED to feel like it's quiet. It never feels quiet down there. But, you know, I mean, I work very closely with her. She's terrific. I think she's been a great addition to the community. She's extended the hours that we've made things available, which is one of the things that we're really happy and proud about. I think quality-wise, she's just absolutely amazing. She's doing a great job. She's a very well-trained nurse practitioner with a very broad, you know, capacity. She's been doing terrific. In our board report, we had some pretty, I think, definitive financial data that it's making an impact in the ER is what we were presented, that they're seeing the ER usage about down 10%, which seems to match the appointments in the same day clinic. So I think that's great. I saw in your agenda some talk about referring people back and forth from the ER to the same day clinic. That's illegal.
Right. That's what we've
So,
discussed.
you know,
Yeah.
it's an entire law that you have to triage at the level that they come to you,
Mhm.
which is a little unfortunate for a patient because it's a lot more expensive to do the same thing in an ER as it is to do in a same day clinic. So I think continuing to educate people to use it and what it's used for. Now, certainly Lorraine can, you know, upgrade her care. If somebody comes into this same day clinic and is above her capacity, she can refer down to the ER, which is a quick trip down the stairs. So that can certainly happen, but you can't downgrade. That's where the MTEL laws come into play. So, but I think it's been very successful. We've been thrilled with it as providers. I think she's doing a great job.
Great. Yeah. I've heard really positive things about it from the folks I know that have utilized it. So I'm happy to hear that remains consistent. And for those of you who don't know, the reason that we're kind of giving this particular operation some star power is because it was specifically called out in the lease as something that would need to be up and functional within a certain amount of time, which Peace Health absolutely met. So I'm just ecstatic that we have this in the community. I definitely think that it's fulfilling a need. And I think as long as all of us maybe do our part and let people know, I did it here last night when we were talking about tourism things. I let people know when they were, you know, asking what the impact was of tourism on the ER. I said, you know, we have the same day clinic. If you weren't aware of that, use those opportunities to let people know.
We've had some cruisers use it too. I promise.
That's right.
Yeah.
We've had some cruisers
Mhm.
use it, and I think Lorraine's been working, I don't know if Kate was involved with it, but with the cruise lines to let them know about it
Right.
too as well, so that it takes pressure off the
ER.
ER.
Yeah.
So sorry.
No, that's okay. I would just say that one of the sets of data that we monitor to see if people are using ED appropriately versus the same day clinic is the acuity of the patients that come in. We don't share the acuity with the patient that came in, but we have kind of a rating level, and there's levels 4 and 5 don't necessarily always need to be seen in ED. And so we can see if those volumes go up or down when the same day clinic is open by hour. So that's something we can watch.
Great. Any other questions or comments about same day clinic? Okay. And the biggie, update on the emergency department renovation.
Gonna give Scott 10-second notice here. So this is a 3-phase project, and we're excited because the first phase is kicking off, and I'll turn it over to Scott because this is work that he's spearheading.
So it still continues to track well. We do have a contractor hired, it was awarded to Monroe Construction. Things continue to move well. All the construction documents obviously are done. There was one piece of mechanical equipment that was a long lead item, several months to get our hands on it. We are working to try to decrease that particular piece of equipment. It has to do with the air handler system, but so that's kind of driving the overall schedule, which is where we're currently shooting for June of next year, with hopes that we can ratchet that back. Our hope is significantly, but yeah, it continues to go well. I think it's going to be a beautiful space. Obviously, a state-of-the-art scanner, lots of new changes. One of the key differences with the new scanner will be our ability to move forward with a cardiac CTA program in a meaningful way. Our current scanner, at the time it was purchased, could do cardiac, But we had trouble getting that off the ground at the time. There's a lot of technological advances that happened really quickly about the time we bought that CT scanner. But anyway, that'll be a big new service with that. Aside from that, there's just a lot of pretty kind of highly technical differences between the new scanner and the old scanner, or our current scanner, excuse me. But anyway, yeah, we're tracking well and have made good progress. I think Marble will actually be in the building, starting with the basement and some other things, about mid-December. So,
Great.
Has a question about that?
Any questions? Yeah.
I guess, next slide, there are two other phases to this project. One is the relocation and the design of the lab. And if you know the blueprint of the hospital, lab sits adjacent to the ED. And so, for two reasons. One, we need that space. And the other is the way the lab is designed today could be more efficient if we redesign that. So that conceptual designing has been completed, and engineering review and cost estimations are completed. And now we're seeking capital approval for that plan. And then we just completed the second round of ED conceptual design. So that hasn't gone for capital approval yet, but that would be a next step if that design gets through the approval process as well. So
Great.
I think the complicated part of that work is just making sure we can still provide services out of both of those locations while we're doing construction, and there's a nuance to that. So yeah,
Absolutely. Okay. Any questions about ED remodel? Very, very large project. Yeah. Okay. Moving on to new business item 7A is the nomination of the HAC chair and vice chair positions. So the charter for the HAC spells out that there will be a chair and a vice chair, one of each representing the two organizations. And the chair is supposed to alternate. And Dory was Peace Health's chair, and that was she was chair this last year, which means it now flips back to the city. So we do have to accept this as a board. So I'm going to throw out someone make a motion to appoint chair and vice chair.
I would make a motion to appoint Tracy as chair. You want it separate?
No.
And would nominate Scott Smith as vice chair representing.
There's a second. Any discussion? Being none. Scott didn't run away, so.
Yeah. I was watching.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor of appointing myself and Scott to chair and vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Okay. Annual report card.
So there are some requirements of the lease that we want to make sure that we run through at these meetings, I understand. And so this report card should cover that. And I would invite Peace Health colleagues to weigh in, since this is my first meeting here. But we do want to make sure that we're continuing to provide all the core services that are outlined in the lease. And that is really hard to see, guys. So I'm going to highlight some of this, but not go through every line.
And we'll make this available after this is over.
And I got my glasses on standby here because I don't have paper, but we are providing the core services as outlined in the lease. And some of the highlights are, just for numbers, curiosity's sake, that our ED is a 24-hour service in which we provide just over 8,000 visits per year. We have an average daily census on the inpatient side of 7.5, and then we have a total of about, in fiscal year 24, 722 acute admits. Outpatient visits, even larger, just over 36,000 outpatient visits, which equates to and then on the inpatient side, the equivalent of 3,400 days. So primary care services, that is an area that Dr. you can attest to. There's a continuing increasing demand for, and we continue to recruit to that service, and you'll see that in the up there in the report card. But for over just under 15,000 visits in primary care, and we know that we can still use more primary care in our service area. Surgery, another kind of growing service line over the last year. We did just under 1,500 cases, which is an increase from prior year. That's going up, and that speaks to the specialty services that we're recruiting into the area. And we're going to continue to recruit to those, and that would likely increase over the coming year as well. We're expecting. Do we have any questions on this slide? There's lots of other numbers on here, but like I said, it'll be provided later.
Just to be clear, can I have one clarification? The 1,500 is general surgery. Orthopedic surgery is also listed on there. So it's a growing busy department, and whatever that adds up to, almost 6,000.
All right, yeah, thanks, Scott. Next slide, we continue to provide visiting physician services under all the specialty areas, including cardiology, gastroenterology, oncology, otolaryngology, pediatrics, pulmonary, and urology. And you can see all of those have been available throughout fiscal year 24, and you can see the number of visits for each of those service lines. Recruitment, not a surprise, and you know, we struggle in some areas with some recruitment, and I don't think that's just a Ketchikan problem. I think this is a national problem. The good news is some of those higher days posted positions are getting some applicants, and so we have some in the pipeline for some of those. But I would expect this to continue to be a challenge, not this year, but pretty much everywhere right now. It's a pretty mobile workforce out there in the provider world. Okay. Billing and collections. So I think one of the questions that was asked was, how often do we send people to a collection service because they perhaps didn't pay their bill? I would say first, before I kind of share this, is that we do have a charitable care program, and we'll see kind of the amount of charitable care that we provide on a future slide. But over fiscal year 24, the total sent to collections that were new was about just over 300 patients. And what I would say also is that the cycle for that is that they would get 4 bills before they would ever be sent to someone to that would want to collect those funds from them. And Peace Health doesn't report to a credit reporting agency. That's another thing that's important to know. Community benefit and charitable care. This is a fun slide because this is the slide that we get to share all the good things that we do out in the community. And our community health board has a sub group that meets on a regular basis to determine where they want to spend a certain amount of funds in the Ketchikan community. And you can see in 2024, we were able to do a pretty significant amount of investment in the community. And it really is investing in those things that extend our mission into the community. And so there was about $88,000 in fiscal year 24 to various agencies that typically come to us for requests for funds. And then the subcommittee of the Community Health Board decides whether or not to fund those requests. In addition, we did about another $100,000 in awards, and that went to the Mobile Integrated Health Unit. And then just to note, I mentioned charitable care in the community, and this includes PHMG numbers, was just over $7 million in fiscal year 24. A lot of things on this slide. What I would note, I guess, is that we do take our patient experience very seriously within Peace Health and the Ketchikan Medical Center. The things that you see on there, because you guys can't read them, are from top to bottom: likelihood to recommend hospital, how people would rate the hospital, how people rate nurse communication, and then how people rate physician communication. What we're proud of is if you look from the left to the right, it gets greener. So there's improvement quarter over quarter there. That the team is working hard on, and there's some very intentional strategies too, that we're working on to do this, and it comes with getting feedback too from that comment line. Some of that feeds some of the initiatives that we do in the hospital to improve that patient experience. Okay. Clinical quality, all green, except for that one bottom right, and it's called a CAUTI. It's a catheter-associated urinary tract infection, which is something you don't want anybody to get. HAC Medical Center took credit for one of those in July. And why it's red, in many hospitals, that wouldn't be red. I got a quality person here. But when you're in a smaller hospital and you have smaller numbers, one of these in a year makes you red. Where if you go to a larger hospital that has 300 beds, they can get 10 of these and they're still not red. And so the demand to just be that much better with a smaller number, with a smaller volume is greater. And I don't know if I can look through to add to that anymore. Is there anything I missed?
This was our first in over 6 years, so this was quite a hard pill to swallow. But I think it has reminded us not to become complacent, right? To ensure that we are doing the absolute best with the care for anybody that has a catheter, but also just getting them out quickly or not even using them at all. So using other methods when we have urinary retention. But it was definitely a stab in the chest.
Thanks. Okay. Slide.
Kendall, sorry, can I just go back, just again, for everyone's understanding, just the report card in general. This did not exist when this group started. This group decided what sort of metrics and what sort of things we wanted to track in this report card, and it remains fluid. It's things that we end up tweaking and adding to all the time. But for these different metrics that are here for the clinical quality, they may seem really weird, and maybe you can speak to this, but these are sort of standardized things that all hospitals are measured for. So they might seem very minor and not the sort of things that most people think about when they think about, you know, how a hospital is rated. But these 5 things are, my understanding is that all hospitals are tracking this and are reporting this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, these aren't random. These are things that the federal government, Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, tell us that we need to be focusing on, and it actually can affect reimbursement for healthcare facilities if you fail to meet the minimum requirements for each of these categories. And so hospitals take these very seriously, and there's a lot of work in the background that goes into making sure that we achieve the desired threshold for success in each of these metrics. And they include things like certain ideally falls that result in harm. Things like hospital-acquired pressure ulcers. So, you know, there's several things in here that they're not unique to us, I guess I would say.
Right.
And they're publicly reported.
Public. Okay. Also, as part of the reset, we want to report our investment back into the community. I think what we want to do is just assure our community that those dollars that go into the spend for healthcare in Ketchikan go back and are reinvested into our community. And we can, our total operating expenses and investments in the facility and in our labor force continues to exceed our total operating revenue year over year, I believe. I haven't been at the last 2 meetings, but I understand that's been the trend, and that continues to be what we shoot for. And we'll flip to the next slide real quick here. And this is kind of a blinding slide. Nobody can read this as well, but it's an impressive list of things that were done in fiscal year 24. And these are reinvestments back. So aside from the expenses in labor force and other kinds of things, there's expenses in things like equipment necessary to do to provide care in the facility. And then some things that are just facility related, like HVAC systems and air conditioners and sidewalks and things like that. So all of those things add up just to kind of make sure that we're keeping the facility in good shape, but also that we're keeping our equipment up to date to be able to provide the services that we need to offer. Scott, anything to add to that?
I don't think there's anything to add. I mean, I think that the prior slide, both of those two are really impressive, but and I think there's historically there's been a general perception in the community that any money that is made within Peace Health might just funnel down to help fund other facilities. And I think it's really important that we all recognize that particular slide, that the investment in our capital, literally every penny that's made at the local hospital is being reinvested in our facilities so that we can care for the community. I think it's important to know.
Okay. And then just wanted to do, there are some things we just wanted to share that are exciting for us. And we recently received what's referred to as a 5 stars rating for cleanliness at Ketchikan Medical Center. And it just demonstrates, I think, the pride of the team at the hospital and that they take in their facility, because if you've ever been in the hospital and you've been in other hospitals, Ketchikan Medical Center is spotless. It really is. It's kind of quite incredible. It's only one of 2 hospitals in the state that have received that 5-star rating, and among the top 5% in the nation. So we celebrated them, by the way, but it's not just our EDS crew, it's all the caregivers that work in the facility as well that contribute to this. Oops. And then, Lacey, I just want to cover the SANE program. I know this has come up in other forums. People kind of wonder either what SANE is. It's a sexual assault nurse examiner examination. We did recently restart this program at the hospital. And I just want to give a bit of background on this one first. In 2023, we put 10 RNs through a course. It would enable them to be able to perform SANE exams at Peace Health. And then in 2024, there was a SANE coordinator that was brought in to provide some additional training, and that was funded both by Peace Health and by WISH. It was a collaborative effort. Bring that to current state. We currently have 3 RNs at KMC that are capable of providing independent examinations if necessary, if a patient were to come in requiring one. We do have 3 other RNs working towards competency. And then the others that were put through the initial training, to be honest, this isn't work that's for everybody. Not everybody, after going through the course, felt like they wanted to actually do this kind of work. And so many of those have pulled out of the program. Right now, our SANE coordinator, who is our OB manager, continues to participate in a monthly SART, multidisciplinary team meeting that's in this community here, just to make sure that we're communicating and coordinating that work with our other partners in the community. And then our current status is our goal is to achieve to perform an exam within 24 to 36 hours. And then acute cases within 12 hours of presenting to the ED, which is within national standards. To date, this year, we have met that in every case that somebody's presented to us. But where we do need to work on is, we only have 3 people there right now. We do need to deepen our bench with caregivers that continue to provide that service. And we are working towards doing that with these additional 3. And then knowing what the attrition rate is for this type of service, we are looking for additional nurses to train into this program.
Judy. Yeah.
So someone who needs a sexual assault exam is expected to wait 36 hours, not eat, drink, or shower because we don't have anybody there. Is there not another way that we can provide this service through a clinic? I mean, if this is your daughter or your mother, I mean, right.
Ideally, that is I think ideally that would be the best option, is to have somebody that's on call 4 hours a day to be able to come in and provide that service, which is where we just need more people trained to do that. Absolutely. Yeah.
How many patients were sent to either Juneau or somewhere else?
I don't know the answer to that. You know the answer to that?
Currently none.
None.
And then year to date, we had how many?
I think it's been 8 for the calendar year. We've done 6 since our program took over. So we've taken care of all of them. And as Kendall mentioned, the 12-hour thing for the acute case, the distinction or differentiation is that most of the cases who have come in are presenting 3 to 4 days after their assault. Some of them have already taken 2 showers. They've had multiple meals. So as far as there's a difference between a medical emergency and doing the forensic exam, which is both the medical and the evidence collection. So for those who come in acutely, as in the assault just occurred and they come in, we're making our best effort to come in right away. But most people are coming in, on their personal time, in addition to working 40 hours a week, as just something that we're committed to doing. So for the people who come in acutely, I don't think that we have had any come in who we haven't seen in the moment. The ones that are delayed are, they're already days remote from the assault.
And then just so I'm clear, do we also assist Wrangell, Petersburg, like the outlying southeast areas?
I believe we have had patients coming from certain, but here.
Can I speak to it?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
No, no,
No. And do you mind saying your name and your,
I am
Kristen.
Labor Delivery.
Perfect,
This
thank you.
program, Slowly over the last year and a half. So for Southeast Alaska, we basically have to act as a community. Places like Wrangell, Sitka, Ketchikan have had really limited to no coverage intermittently, and the state has worked to train people, but availability, competency are all issues with, do we have enough people to offer these services? Because they're not, nobody works as a full-time stay nurse in Southeast Alaska. But a place like Anchorage, for example, they have full-time people who do this work and they still will wake up to 48 hours. That is unfortunately the standard. So to more directly answer your question, yes, the reality of these situations is that for the one case that came up, the person had already been like 5 days since assault by the time the call came to us. And that person was supposed to come to us in the morning, like first flight from Wrangell. We had a nurse scheduled to see that person, and then the person didn't get on the plane. The arrangements weren't made. So by the time that person would have come, the only nurse who was available to do the exam would have been coming to work at 6 or 7 p.m. to perform a 6 to 8 hour exam, and then still had to come to work in labor and delivery at 7 in the morning, which violates nurse work law in the state of Alaska. So in that particular incident, it was better for the patient to go to a different community where they had somebody available to do the exam as soon as she was able to get to that community. We were available to do it the next day, but by the time they would have made it to Ketchikan, they would have been, I can't remember, I think it would have been 6 days post assault. So you can only collect evidence for up to 7 days. So the coordination that happened there was between Wrangell PD, the troopers in Ketchikan, the Wrangell clinic, the Wrangell emergency room, myself, and a house supervisor to get this person to where they could get the best care the fastest. So absolutely, we coordinate as a community of Southeast Alaska, but we have to make sure that we're able to get people to the best place at the right time.
I guess I don't really want to have any more of this conversation because what I say, I don't know how many come out of Wrangell, but I mean, we're a small community. I wouldn't want people to end up finding out who they are. So I'll just leave that at that and have that conversation with you. But that's why I just referred to Southeast. Not the city. I just want to be sure that people aren't being turned away. I understand that the emergency department is contracted out. I want to be sure that the folks in the emergency department know that this is something that they have to do or refer people to, and that, because I have heard that they get turned away, and I want to be sure that's not.
Thanks, Judy. Any other questions, discussion about the SANE program? Okay.
This is my final slide. I wanted to end on this. We do participate in what's referred to as a DAISY Award, and this is a national award for nursing that recognizes exceptional compassionate care. And KMC recently adopted this program and delivered their first award to an awardee, a nurse at KMC, Michelle Bucco. Got it. Okay. Just the other month. And so just wanted to celebrate that because in addition to patient experience, we want to make sure we recognize our caregivers as well for exceptional performance and compassion. That's all I have in this. Do you have anything? No?
Great. Thank you, Kendall. So that's a lot of information. So we'll definitely get the report. We'll distribute it to the committee members and also post it to the city's website as part of this meeting's material so the public can review that as well. So if there are any questions as you look through that, feel free to get in touch with me or Kendall. And thank you, as always, for putting together those reports. I know that requires a bit of time to pull together all the data, but it's very helpful, and that is a primary function of this group. And again, as you read through the report, if you think there are holes or ways that it could be better, we're constantly trying to refine and improve the report, because we just do it the once annually, unless there's a reason otherwise. So thank you. Okay. So that brings us to the end of our main items for this evening's meeting in terms of different reports, report card, discussion. So now it's open for future agenda items, if anybody on the HAC has thoughts. I'll add that we have kept the same-day clinic and emergency department as sort of standing items because they're constantly, kind of evolving. So I enjoy keeping those there unless there's any objection to that. I don't know if we want to try next time to get our partners from KTVC and True North to revisit that. We can certainly do that too.
I think there's some updates that we need from that too.
Yeah. Okay, we can do that.
I don't know if it's appropriate, and I know this is my first meeting. This seems, and maybe it's appropriate to be a very one-directional reporting thing. However, I think we're a community. And so, one of the things I love to hear a little about, one of the things we have a really difficult time in recruitment is affordable housing.
Mhm.
And I know that's an issue for our community all over the place, but for us, it's affordable housing near the hospital. And I would love to hear, sort of a report from the city, if it's appropriate. It may not be the right forum, but on, how we're looking at trying to handle that for us. And it's really probably in the 50% of the people we've tried to recruit from a physician aspect recently, it's come up as an issue, and we've lost candidates because of it.
Right.
So, I think if we really want, it's going to take a village to keep the health of our hospital going. So I would love to hear, how the city's
Sure.
addressing it.
Yeah, we'd be
I don't know if
happy.
that's appropriate for this, but
I think it is appropriate because, again, some of the metrics that are in the report card in terms of provider recruitment and retention totally revolve around housing needs. We can absolutely put something together. It might be one of these collaborative reports because the city is a little limited in how it addresses housing.
Sure.
Because number one, it's an island-wide issue. And this largely falls to planning and zoning authority, which is under the borough. So
Gotcha.
I will happily speak with them and see if we can't put together a co-presentation because the city is doing some things. We are looking at surplus properties for the second time around to take some of the properties that the city has currently under its purview and trying to auction them off to create more opportunities for housing, which may not be affordable,
Yeah.
but it does help bolster the total number of houses in the community. So we can definitely work on putting something together
that
for the
might be
next meeting.
For us to share with our
Definitely.
potential recruits.
Yep.
That's the word.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Other items for the next meeting, which will not be until January. Yeah. One thing, just I can't promise that it will make it to the agenda, but to your point, Tim, about both parties sort of coming to the table and reporting on things that they're doing. One thing that both the city and Peace Health haven't really been able to do since this lease was enacted, because it was enacted during COVID when we both took a very substantial financial hit, is to address the myriad of capital improvement items that the hospital has and will continue to have. Part of the lease agreement is a sort of running list of all of those items with probably outdated estimates and priorities. So Kendall and I and Scott the other day were talking a little bit about this. So this is a conversation, Amanda, that we hope to kickstart after the first of the year. And I'm sure you do have ideas. Because that is a co-commitment from each organization to continually try to improve to the best of our financial ability, the hospital, because it is an older facility at its core and also one that's heavily used. So we'll talk more about that, and maybe that could be something that's on the next agenda as well.
We certainly appreciate the parking updates. That's a tough thing, especially with the weather turning.
Yeah.
You know, so we appreciate that for sure.
Great. Okay. Any other thoughts for the next agenda? And Judy, I'm so sorry to see you go again. Again. Get the feeling we might get you back.
It's good for everybody on the council to
Agreed.
see how this process works. And, you know, I was here when we did the lease, and I think it's worked great. I mean, really, HAC is a great place for people to come and voice their concerns. And I think we've accomplished a lot, giving, you know, a voice to the community. And I'll still stop by once in a great while. But yeah, it's been a pleasure serving on this board. So good luck to y'all.
Yeah. Thank you, Judy. Okay. Any final comments from the HAC? Okay. Well, I will call this meeting adjourned. There's no objections. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I'll bring my my magic wand and my crystal ball. Yeah. Just take care of that right away.
Actually bringing another question.
Yeah, you too.
Yes.